Welcome to the Married People podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and today is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually the only one sitting at the table today, and that's because we're not going to be discussing anything today. Now, on this episode, we're actually going to hear a couple's story. There's no one simple thing, there's no group discussion. So like I said, it's going to feel a little bit different, but we thought it would be really fun to try something new here on the podcast. So sit back, relax, and be encouraged as you hear the amazing story and journey of Sam and Toni Collier, a couple here in the Atlanta area who have been through a lot together. This is an amazing story of redemption, and I really think you're going to enjoy hearing it. So check this out.
Hey, welcome to the Married People podcast, where we try to make marriage real, fun, and simple. I'm here with Sam and Toni Collier, and they have been married. How long you guys been married?
A year and a little change.
A year and a little change. I like that. Well, I'm so excited about this because, you know, when I heard that you guys were getting married, I knew of you separately,
yes.
The dynamos that you both are separately. And I thought you're getting married and went, Uh-oh. This is going to be really great or really scary.
Right? It's about to be an explosion.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me introduce you guys. Sam, tell me a little bit about what you do, because it's so many things that I've got it in front of me, like your bio, but it's so many things. I don't know how to do this. So Introduce yourself.
Man, well, I'm a North Point communicator. I tell everybody it's a couple black people there. It's me and Toni. Okay? No, but there's more. I mean, I think North Point is about 20% diverse now across all campuses. But there aren't that many people of color in leadership. A couple, for sure. A little more than a couple. But I'm honored to be one of their communicators there. So being there on a Sunday morning, me and Andy and Joseph Sojourner did Skin in the Game when it came out, when everything happened in the Dallas shooting. And so that was an awesome moment, 70,000 views in the first day, which was great because of the topic, reconciliation. And so that's a great segue into Orange work, because I'm the director of city strategy for Orange. Orange conferences to rethink. I mean, you know, the whole piece, which just means we try to help diversify the content, our stages, our different environments, and just helping all of our staff just think through diversity and what their goals are, what our goals are, and what we can do together to unite the country and to serve all churches of all demographics, races, and socioeconomic statuses. And then finally, I have a podcast. We're on 35 FM and AM stations.
Wow.
It's great. 600,000 listeners on a weekly basis that we reach. And it's on iTunes, called A Greater Story.
A Greater Story. So they can find your podcast on iTunes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've just got to pump this because it's so great.
Well, it's
right?
not like the Married People podcast. Like, this one is a little different.
Yeah, you have a lot of listeners. That's the difference right there. But we're working on it. We're working on it.
No, we're excited. I love it. I listen to this podcast. I love the episodes.
For sure.
And I really do think that it is occupying a space that is necessary in culture and in the church.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Love it.
All right, Toni?
Okay. So I guess I'll start just from my ministry career. So I started off as a youth pastor and an FCA speaker, speaking to middle school and high school students. Then I kind of transitioned and got into the creative and logistics world. And so I kind of dabbled in student ministry. Then I dabbled in creative arts and marketing, internal communication. And then now God has so graciously let me occupy spaces that I can kind of do both in. So North Point communicator, host as well in different environments, main stage, all the way down to elementary at times. But getting to do those things, I also work with Gwinnett Church and do some branding and creative logistics and project management. And it's been great. So those are the things that I do. And yeah.
She's such a great communicator.
You're a great communicator.
All right, okay.
I learned from the best.
And we're talking to new newlyweds.
Yes.
I love this. I love newlyweds. And then you guys are a blended family as well, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your sweetie?
Oh.
Yes. Little
I know.
D.
Little D.
Little D.
Dylan. Well, let me say this.
She's the queen of cute. Is
yeah.
what she
I
is.
call myself the bonus dad.
the
Oh,
I
yes.
like that.
And he is a great bonus dad for sure. Dylan absolutely loves
She's
her.
just so wild. She's
Loves
so
her
wild.
some bonus dad out here.
Yeah. She came the other day. Well, now that she's getting a little bit more liberal.
Yeah.
As things go on.
That's a great word to
She's
use.
Three,
Yeah, three,
right?
uh-huh.
And she didn't used to come in the room.
Oh, yeah.
But now,
It's
if she
like-
wakes up, she's walking in that door. Now she's quiet, so that is good. But I woke up and she was standing there looking at me. I said, "Hey, come on!" And she just climbed on there, and so that was like, okay. Well, she's coming on in now.
Yeah, liberal is a good word, but she's amazing. I will say she is one heck of a 3-year-old. I will say that she's
holding her own.
Yeah, she's holding her own.
Very
She's super
smart.
independent, very smart, super compassionate, and I will say she has a ton of energy. So she fits right on into our explosion, if you will.
Both of them wake up on 10.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
I
We're
need
like the
about
same.
I need
Little
about
Tony.
I need
She's
about
little
10,
Tony, yeah?
right. 100%. I need about 10 minutes before
It's like, let's do
hours.
bonus dad.
Like to
20
wake
minutes,
up.
right?
Bonus dad needs just
Bonus
a minute.
dad. Just a little
Give
minute.
me a couple seconds, guys.
Working 10, but you're working at a 3 or 4.
Right, I'm like
Building to 10.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
to build in the 10.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. But,
I mean,
she's great.
it's crazy. They both wake up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, so how's everybody? It's like boom, boom, boom. Both
Good
of them.
morning.
I'm excited. She's like, Mr. Sam, I'm going to school today, and we're
And
going to do
then
this, and we're going to do this.
this
I'm
and
like,
that.
what'd you say?
Like, let me get my left eye to peel open real quick.
Just
Good
one
Lord.
of them. Just need one eye.
That's funny,
And you're
but
good.
it's really cool. It's a great dynamic. We have a whole bunch of fun, and we're constantly running around all over the house.
Yes.
Going crazy.
There's a lot of energy in that house.
Lot of
In
energy.
this house. Hey.
Hey.
Okay, well, let's dive into this because you guys, a lot of our listeners are millennials, which we're excited about. We feel like
Yes.
millennials get a bad rap, and we want to be the most pro-millennial company that focuses on marriage for sure. So we're pro-millennials, and so a lot of millennials are blended families. So the thing I do love about millennials is, I say this every episode, so I'm going to say it again. But Pew Research came out with a study that the number 2 things with the millennials want was to be good parents, number 1, and number 2 was to have a successal marriage. So I love that about millennials.
Wow.
That's what they're going after. So speak to being newly married, but being a blended family. How has that played itself out? What works? What's the challenges?
You want to go first?
So I think for us, it was honestly, I think there's a lot of things that we experience that any couple would experience.
Sure.
In that we grew up in 2 separate households, 2 separate parenting styles. And so now we're building this blended thing, okay, with all these different experiences from our own personal childhood. So I would say, much like many couples
Sure.
that aren't even in the blended family, with new families, with new babies, we're working through that. How did your parents do this? How did my parents do this? And the cool thing about it is, I hate to give this plug, but I think I have to. Orange, in Sam's background, in Orange, focusing on the psychological part of kids and how they react to things and how to talk to them and strategies has honestly been so eye-opening for me. Like having that, I guess I would say, asset in the household has been incredible because it's taught me so much where, Sam did have a super, in my opinion, had a really great childhood growing up. I had a pretty rough one. And my parents, just had some struggles with parenting and with personal life. And so for us, I think having that extra tool of Orange and that background and his intellect around raising Dylan has been incredible. And for me, I would say it's just yielding to that. Just making sure that I understand that in this area, there's a lot more experience coming from Sam's side and yielding to that experience. And it's been really great. So I will say that I've learned a whole bunch.
Right. So you came.
Well, she was already good.
She seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier for me to understand Dylan. Not, I guess, easier than her, but it's just really easy for me because I understand Toni.
There it
and
is.
so they're the same person. So
Yeah.
the difference is she's just younger and all of her emotions are everywhere because she's just young, you know. So she is the young version of Toni. So it's like, oh wow, look at that. I was like,
Look at that.
Let's talk about this. Hey, let's deal with it this way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, she was already good. I mean, Toni is a brilliant reader, so she has read every book known to man, probably,
Yeah, I got
about
my phase guide.
child care.
Get your phase guide. There you go.
And so whatever I may have instinctively because of the childhood, she already has intellectually. And so it makes for a great mix. I think the blended thing for me, it has, it's honestly, I think it's been great. I mean, for us in terms of the ex, right? The ex-husband. And, me being the bonus dad, him being now in this, Toni went through pretty difficult marriage before we got together.
Yeah.
Which we talk about. I always say, I felt like it was a rescue mission when we met. It was just she was in such a dark place, but
for sure.
God has, oh Lord, I'm getting emotional already. Lord, it's too soon, Ted.
No.
Let's go. It's the redemptive power of God, seeing it work out in real time. People look at our lives now, and they say, a lot of people are like, man, y'all doing it, y'all doing everything, y'all blessed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I honestly think God is blessing us to repay her. For all of the difficulty and the hardships and things that she went through. I mean, it's just the favor that God has put in our story in this moment. It's just been, it's mind blowing, because you wonder, I think for every blended family out there, whether you've been in a marriage first, now you're in another one, or you're here, or you had a kid out of wedlock, whatever, and now you're in this, you're like, okay, where does this land on the God continuum?
That's it. Yeah.
With all the theological conversations and bends and so, and Reggie, by the grace of God, Reggie married us and all that, and it was great, and we spent a lot of time talking, but it's so many things out there that you're like, God, what do you think about this? And he kind of, for us, I felt like he's like, I'm gonna make a big statement.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I love it, and let me bless you. And it's just been like, it's nothing more clear, I think, for me, than to see God bless something you're in.
For sure.
Then you're like, okay, you're in your will. Because I'm in, and pull back the curtain a little bit more if we're going there.
Let's go.
For me, I feel like early on, people will look at me and they would know, I have a lot of mentors. And that me getting into this particular marriage or situation is, on paper, they probably would have said, don't do it, because of everything I was already doing. You know what I'm saying? In terms of, I was on stages, I was doing this, I was doing that.
Yeah.
And Toni, she had a child already. She had been through a hard situation. And everything on paper, they would say, well, you may need to go and get in something a little bit more. Whatever. But when we talked, I said, the Lord is drawing me to this situation. And in my head, it doesn't make sense. But in my heart, it does make sense. And in my spirit, it makes sense.
Yeah.
God, what are you doing? And you go through this moment, like, God, what? And then you get on the other side, and you're like, oh, my goodness. This was your plan. Wow.
Yeah.
This was your plan.
That's so good.
So it really has been, I think the fact that we're even on this podcast is a piece of it.
Yeah.
It's like, my prayer has always been, God, use my marriage to inspire others.
Oh, for sure.
And like and this is what we've been talking about. I said, I want our marriage to be, and again, when I say example, I don't mean perfection.
For sure.
But I just want to inspire people to want to get married.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying?
It's a good thing.
Okay, guys.
Before we started this, I asked these guys, what do I need to stay away from? And you guys were both like, hey, we've only been married a year, and we don't want people to think we're teaching. But I got to tell you, your last year has been teaching us, all of us. I've been married 22 years, and you've taught me a ton. And so I think, we talk a lot about it, married people, that when you get together, you're a unique us, and there's no other us just like the two of you. Because I think for a while in Christendom, we're elevating this perfect pedestal couple that I'm not sure anybody could really be. And most of us are kind of going around, well, if that's it, then that's not us. And we go, I think God's way more creative than that.
Whoa.
I think he's way more redemptive than that.
Yeah.
I think he tells all these amazing stories. And so when I thought about you guys, like they said, who do you guys, we're at Orange Tour, and they said, who do you want? And I said, they said Sam was here, and I said, is Toni going to be here too? Because I want both of them. Because I've been watching you guys, and there's a couple of things that you've done that I want to ask you about, but you guys are telling a beautiful story. Can we do this for just a second? Sam, when you, and Toni both, when you look at, at the marriage that you grew up watching, can you tell us a little bit why that was, that you guys both look at that as healthy and whole? and a good thing?
In terms of my parents?
Yes.
Well, you know, some people that know my story, some people don't. I was adopted. And so I got adopted at 2 months. Me and my twin sister got adopted together. We came from a poverty-stricken situation. Dad was on crack. Mom doing drugs as well. You look at the adoption papers, you see it kind of traces her steps back to prostitution a little bit, potentially. That's where they found her. So she had 3 kids at age 21 on welfare. Then she had me and my sister, twin, 5 kids at age 21 on welfare. She couldn't take care of the 3. So she's like, what do I do about the 2? And so she gives us up for adoption. I'm like, the Moses stories, like, put them up the river. I hope everything works out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm praying that it will, because I can't take care of them, but I don't want to bring them into this poverty. Whatever. So we get adopted by a lovely couple who, this is a big story, I think, leading to the answer. My dad was married twice before he met my mom. In his first marriage, it didn't go well. He had 2 sons. One of them has HIV and AIDS right now. But he wasn't able to be a part of their life because the mom would just keep him away, and she wouldn't tell them that she was. So they grew up thinking my dad didn't want me, when really she wouldn't let them see. She wouldn't let him see them. And so that was one. Second marriage, it was cool, but it was cool, but it just didn't work. I mean, it was hard. It was he kind of stepped into a situation where they had a daughter, and they didn't have a daughter together, but there was already a daughter, so he became a stepfather. It didn't work. But at the time, he wasn't saved. He didn't believe in Jesus. He wasn't doing the God thing. And so he's in the laundromat 3 p.m. on a Sunday, randomly in Washington, D.C., washing clothes. My mom walks in. They don't know each other. She's in a marriage, married to a Black Panther. And if you know anything about the Black Panther Party, they're kind of the opposite of the Ku Klux Klan, but really they were a response to the Ku Klux Klan. And so in their minds, they were policing, but, for the Black community, because at the time, could we trust cops, whatever.
Right.
But, and sometimes it got a little wild, you know what I'm saying? In terms of, it just went a little too far. It's like, good Lord, y'all. I know we were killing people. But she was married to a Black Panther. And so it was an aggressive organization. And so she was abused. She was being abused in this marriage. And he had just hit her in the head with a hammer.
Oh.
And the next day, she's at the laundromat at 3 p.m. And honestly, she's looking for an alibi because I think she's going to go kill him or something. I mean, she's just at that point, I got to get out.
Yeah.
And that day they meet, both in the middle of this divorce, and she doesn't go and do anything. They walk and they never look back. They walk out of there, they never look back. They go through their divorces and they never look back. And then they get saved. And then after they get saved, they get married. And if they get married, they say, this is our opportunity to do it right. We've done it our way long enough. We've been here. We've been in these marriages. We've been in this. It's been crazy, whatever. God, now we give you our lives. And then they find out my mom can't have kids. And so they fly from Washington, D.C. down to Atlanta to adopt Augusta to adopt these kids. And when they walk in, we're in there, me and my twin sister, and they say, you don't want to adopt them. They're probably not going to be much because of where they come from.
Oh, gosh. Little did they know.
Little did they know.
And my mom and my dad go, and this is explaining the type of people they are. My mom, my dad was, I think, almost 60 at the time, maybe 50, 55 at the time. And my dad's like, no. My mom's like, no, we want them. They adopt us. My sister, she's an industrial engineer now. She went to Georgia Tech Spelman. I mean, I'm here.
But you're not going to make much.
Right?
You don't want these two, right? They're not going to do much.
And, it was exact. And they did everything our entire lives as great married people, right?
Right, there you go.
No knock on wood. To raise us in a way to where us not believing in ourselves was viewed as wrong.
That's good.
It's like, So even when we would do something where we accomplished something that we thought was, man, it took me. I remember I learned how to play the piano without any lessons. I mean, I was playing. And by 10th grade, I was playing 6 instruments. And in my head, I'm like, yes, I can't believe it. I work hard. My dad's like, well, what else were you gonna do? That was his thing. It was like,
of course you can do that.
Yeah, you're great. What else? And so,
oh wow,
that's how he raised us. It was like mediocrity.
Oh, okay, that's great.
Was
10 instruments. Now what's next?
What's next?
Right.
I mean, of course you're gonna do that. What else you gonna do? And it was like, so it's just this belief thing happened in us.
Right.
And it's funny because I remember them telling us, like, we always knew that that's what the adoption people said, but for some reason it didn't impact us. I don't know why. I think it's just our parents. They were just like, whatever, boom, 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 boom. And so we just fought. So we fought hard to be what my dad and mom expected us to be.
Yeah.
And so I think their marriage, it was a great picture because they just, there was never any infidelity. We never had a moment where we thought there was infidelity. It was just always, that's mom and dad. They together. They gonna do their thing. I will say this, they never argued in front of us. That was big. They never, maybe I think once it maybe slipped out, but it is maybe in a road trip somewhere, but they never did.
Vacations to bring it out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to cut them a break.
Right. Yeah. But I remember when they would argue, they would go in their room. They would go in their room. They could see it bubbling up, and I would see them go, let's go in the room. And they would go in the room, and we could kind of maybe overhear, but we wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
I would hear my dad going,
Oh my God.
Like us dads do, right? But you didn't feel unsafe. You didn't think that they're going to go in the room and come out and go, hey, I'm not sure this is working out. Like you guys never felt that.
No, they may argue or have a moment come out, and let's all watch a movie. And it was there. This is the last piece to the story is every morning at 5 a.m., they were praying every morning.
Wow.
Every morning. And I started noticing it more the older I got because I would just stay up late. Because I'll stay and watch TV. It's 1 a.m. I might be up until 5. And I hear them get up. I'm like, should I go back in my room? You know what I'm saying? But they weren't coming out. They were praying. Every single morning. They would pray for us. They would pray for the marriage. They would pray for our family. Wow. And
that's the story of their us, and it's a beautiful one too, right? Isn't that a beautiful? And it, we talked about earlier, what do marriages produce? Like what comes out of them? Hopefully come out whole, happy kids who are now married, who are now married doing that. Yeah. Toni, if you don't mind, share a little bit of your story because I think it. To see those kind of side by side, just whatever you're comfortable with. Let me put it this way: what marriages did you see growing up?
Man. So I would say my story probably isn't as polished as Sam's, but what's very peculiar is we have a central thread as far as our parents goes, and that central thread is that my mom was in an abusive marriage, and it was rough. It was rough. Her ex-husband was on drugs and cheating on her in front of her. Bringing drugs into the house, broken arm when she was pregnant, black eye when she was pregnant with my brother. Very, very difficult situation. And much like Sam's dad, they met, and my dad essentially rescued her from this situation, which is this underlying theme that we keep seeing all inside of our stories. It's this rescue, this redemption thing that God is doing. And so my mom gets rescued essentially by my dad, and he moves her and my brother to Houston. My dad has had 2 marriages as well, and he's gotten a divorce, and my mom has gotten a divorce, and they literally come together, and they get saved, and they start going to church together. My dad brings my mom to church, moves her down to Houston, Texas, and then they have me. However, my mom didn't heal from her first marriage, and so just a difficult time for transitioning, hard, very difficult to build trust of my dad. But one of the things, and for my dad, he had a really hard childhood as well. Lots of verbal abuse, a little physical abuse with his parents. And so you bring these 2 broken people together, and you experience brokenness that leaks out to your kids. And so growing up, I experienced verbal abuse myself. I experienced my mom in a very different light. And about the 3rd grade, my mom has a stroke, and it completely knocks her out. She's paralyzed on her left side entirely, spasms, seizures have started. And so many different things, to do with her health. She had a blood clot, she lost her large intestine. So many different things, but she just kept bouncing back. And so I'm watching this miracle happen, but I'm also living in fear as a child, because what I've experienced is this parentified child thing. So I'm growing up being the parent. My dad's working all the time. And he's also very aggressive, verbal abuse there. And so I'm growing up, I'm raising myself and raising my mom and taking care of her. And so I've got this this gift, if you will, of leading and being a natural leader. But then I've also got these broken pieces that I've been experiencing my whole life. And so I left the house at 16, graduated high school, went off to college at 16, and just kind of did my own thing. I would say in the midst of all that brokenness, some of the things that I really honor my parents for is their willingness to give and my dad's willingness to provide. I think that those two things, even in the midst of all that brokenness, were the things that I took away that really shaped the person that I am. They were always givers. I mean, they're the patriarchs, the rocks of our families. They do whatever they can for our family. They give with no strings attached. They serve people with no strings attached. I remember we used to take trips to Louisiana, and my dad would literally stop like 7 times to help people on the road. It was like, okay, Dad, we have to get there. Like, we just have to get there, okay? We
You're not AAA,
it's
Dad.
4
Come on
hours.
now.
It's
Yeah.
turning into 7 right now, okay? But he was a giver. I mean, he just was a giver, and those are just some positive traits that I learned from both of them. And then my dad was a provider. While it was very hard growing up not to have a father in the household, but not to have him around because he had to work so much, is difficult. What it taught me was this appreciation of and balance of the male really providing for his family. And I'm all girl power. I'm like, come on, let's lead as women, but. Even now in my marriage with Sam, it's one of the things that I'm so extremely grateful for, and that I can really see clearly that he provides to the marriage, and that is being a provider, doing whatever it is that he can to take care of me, to take care of Dylan, and to provide for us. And I think that's one of the things that my parents really showed me and helped me to see is just, being a giver, providing. And so, yeah. And now I get to I get to be more grateful for it in my own marriage because I see the value of it in the midst of brokenness.
Wow, and that's the power of perspective too, right? So you said initially I grew up really rough, but you said, you know what, these are the good things.
Yeah.
These are the good things that he did bring to the relationship. My mom brought to the relationship as well. What about you guys? How did you meet?
Ministry, right?
At Buckhead Church, North Point.
Yeah.
Okay.
At a church planning meeting. A friend of mine wanted to start a church. And he was like, hey, would you pastor? I was like, tell me more about this.
Hold on a minute.
And
Wait.
I said, maybe bring a presentation. And she was doing the presentation.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that girl is fine.
Oh, my God.
And then we just became friends. I met her at a time, knew she was in a dark place. And she was just asking for help for ministry. She was like, hey, I want to do ministry.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're navigating it. I've got these gifts. I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, well, my role is actually bringing in minorities, to what we do at North Point and also Orange.
Yeah.
So you'd be great. That's why I started bringing her in. I introduced her to Reggie, introduced her. Well, she didn't meet Andy yet, but I introduced her to the different people at North Point at different campuses. Yeah, she'd be great. We got to get her on stages. I was sending them their video. And over time, we became friends, hanging out, doing ministry stuff, tried to do as many groups as possible. And then we fell in love really fast.
Yeah.
Really fast.
I mean, very
Yes.
fast. Almost
Very
like
fast.
2-3 months. Fast.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got it. I do. Hey, same way, man.
Yeah.
Same way. Oh, yeah.
You just,
Wow.
it's like, it was.
You knew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For me, it
for
was
sure.
like it was a very to this day, I'm like, man, what was I? I was so intoxicated at the time with just this feeling of connection. And,
Yeah.
I almost, I struggle with the idea of destiny. Was that what, because that's in the moment that I felt that, you know what I'm saying? On the other side, obviously knowing, but there was just strong, let's just keep hanging out. Let's just keep hanging. Let's where you going? Where you, and it's just, and it intensifies. And then, and you had that conversation. Okay, well, should we, go further? Or should we let you have some more time to
For sure.
debrief yourself from this
Yeah.
darkness?
Right.
And we made a decision to just get in the darkness together.
Get in the darkness together.
Yeah. And I think, I would say that was probably one of the greatest parts of our journey is.
I don't think we would have made it had we not gotten in the darkness together.
Yeah.
If you had to get,
Oh, for sure. Because that was the decision to journey together was probably one of the most powerful things one of the most powerful moments. It was like we could do this separately.
Yeah.
I can go and, do my thing. You can do your thing, but let's do this together. Like, let's journey together.
Yeah. I mean, I think there were a lot of, if we're getting more into the technical side of things, there were a lot of things that I think she needed to rebuild herself.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I mean, the last situation took everything from her. She almost like lost her identity.
For sure.
And her belief. I mean, she lost a lot of stuff. So we had to rebuild. There was a lot of, our counselor calls it, because as soon as we got married, we jumped into counseling the next week.
Yeah.
And we've been in it since. It's been incredible for us.
Incredible.
So when you started dating, you started with a counselor?
No, right after we got married.
Gotcha. Yep.
As soon as we got, as soon as we did our own form of counseling when we were dating with each other. I'm like, okay, because my ministry mind is on. I'm like, tell me about this. Okay, let's try this. And then you get married, okay, cool. We need to bring somebody else in, just because it's a lot at one time.
For sure.
And our counselor calls it. She just had a bottomless pit of, I guess the word is value.
Yeah.
In terms of, it was an open pit because nobody had ever closed it in. There was no foundation. It had been ripped. In terms of the last marriage, the verbal abuse, some physical abuse, the lack of the provide. I mean, all these things put her in a space of. I remember the moment she explained to me when it hit me. That she said there was a moment where she thought, maybe my life will never be better than this. Maybe this is all there is. And so lost all dreams, all hope, and so I think there were some tools that I had in my arsenal, and from relationships to understanding that I don't think, had we separated at the time, would have been able to come so quickly.
For sure.
Because, we grabbed our counselor straight from North Point. So I need a counselor. Like, she's got a master's or doctorate in theology and psychology. So
okay, I want to pause you guys for just a second, because Toni, I've been working with married couples for 16 years, and my view of divorce has morphed over the years because I think I had a really legalistic sense of it. I know I encourage some couples to stay together that this is going to sound weird, that I probably shouldn't have. And while for most people, divorce is not the right answer, I can dare say that. I think a lot of divorce is not the answer. For some people, it is. And because we make promises, people that do what I do, they make promises that people's spouses can't keep. Like I can make promises of your relationship with Jesus because we know he is solid and the same every day. But people that do what I do, they make promises to somebody to say, hey, if you do X, then your spouse is going to turn into Y. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's not the case. And I know, Toni, you speak into the lives of teenagers and to women. What would you say right now to a woman or a man who feels like, I'm damaged and I'm hurt and I'm not sure this is God's best for me? Like, what would you say to them?
Oh, man. I have talked to a lot of women that, honestly, when I was in ministry before as a student pastor, I didn't realize how many people actually battle with this, are actually in situations and marriages that are hurting so bad. And after the divorce, all of these women just like sprouted up and started asking me, hey, what's your insight? How do you feel? What do you do? And this is the thing that I've been telling women. One, I don't want to advise anyone to make a decision. I don't think that that's my place. I think that, women and men and anyone that's in a hard situation really has to make the decision for themselves.
Sure.
But what I will say is, in my own personal story, what I've known, and I hope I don't get emotional, what I've known about myself is that God has a really, really strong plan for me. And even in the midst of my brokenness in my home life growing up, I just knew that there was something that God wanted to do in me that I just had to fight for. And so that was my fight. It was like, what do I do? How do I get to the next level? How do I keep going? How do I do what God has purposed for me? I graduated, went to college, moved to Georgia, became a student pastor, started speaking to students everywhere. And I knew I was in my purpose. And there was a moment in my first marriage where I didn't have that hope anymore. And it wasn't my fault. And
wow.
And gosh, it was the clearest but most hurtful moment that I'd ever experienced, because it dawned on me that Toni is going to go to heaven by herself. And if I don't fulfill the thing that God has for me because of someone else and what I'm allowing them to do to me and my purpose and my identity, then there's no one else in the world that I'm going to answer to but God. And so the question became, am I going to keep fighting for this situation when it is damaging the very being that God has created? And am I going to stay? Am I going to keep fighting for someone that I honestly don't think is fighting for the same thing? Or, am I going to lose it? And am I going to have to answer to God and say, I allowed this other human that you've created to damage what you want to do in me? And at that moment is when I knew that I had to go. And it was so difficult. And like so many people out there, I know you're experiencing guilt. I can't break my family up. I know you're experiencing shame, especially if you're on a platform. And gosh, did I cry many nights knowing that this platform that I'd built with God may be damaged. People may look at me differently. But I said, I believe that God has good for me, that he's a good and sovereign God, and I'm not experiencing that in my life, and I am fighting for it. But I'm not experiencing it, not because God's not good and sovereign, and not because I'm not good and sovereign, but because I'm in a situation that is draining the goodness that I have and that I need to fight for inside of me. And that is, I would say to those people, man, when bitterness starts to build in your heart and you stray away from what God has for you and the person he's created and the person that you're going to have to present to him, then that's when you need to start making, some changes in your situation.
Because I'm sure you fought for it too.
Gosh.
Right before you got to that.
Yeah, I would say, that's after 6 years, that is the last place. But that's after the fighting and the praying and the classes and so many different things.
Right. That you got to it and you did all that you could do and got to it going, okay, God, this is between you and me. Wow.
I hope that helps.
What did you mean by draining? Just give them a little bit.
For me personally, and this may totally not look like anyone else's situation, but for me, the draining came in not feeling safe in every aspect. And that's like a one word for everything. Not feeling safe enough to share my emotions, being with, someone that's not considerate or compassionate towards my emotions and how I feel. So not feeling safe enough to communicate my feelings, not feeling safe financially, having to be the provider for a long time, and coming from a household where my dad was the provider, and that's what I knew to be true about men and about husbands, is to feel, safe financially. But I filed for food. I'm working in full-time ministry. I'm the only one working, and for a while, and I'm filing for food stamps and WIC, and I'm driving around with my daughter in a car that leaked when it rained and had mold in it, and it was only 2 doors, so you're having to take the car seat in and out, and not eating. Having coffee for breakfast and lunch just so, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Just so that I can make sure we have enough food stamps to have enough food to have dinner. And for my moms out there, like, if I can be candid, breastfeeding out of necessity and not desire. But formula being expensive, and so sorry. But just not feeling safe and appreciated, and not being on the same page with church life and Christianity, and feeling like I have to lessen myself as a person to feed into, making you feel better about your life and about what's happening. And I mean, gosh, so many different things, but just fighting through all of that and coming out in the end and losing hope.
And you got your hope back now, don't you?
And now I've got my hope back.
You have got your hope back, and I watch you too. And here's the thing. I know we've got Christians listening to this going, wait a minute, no one's ever to divorce. I know that, but they haven't sat where you've sat.
Man.
They don't know. And, I counsel a lot of people, and sometimes it's the only way. You fought for it, and at the end of the day, you listened where God was leading you. And now I see the two of you, and here's one of the images that I have of you guys that I love that will always be seared in my mind is we were at Orange Conference, which is this big conference. For those of you who just don't know what in the world the Orange Conference is, we're not picking fruit. There's this organization we're a part of, and it's to influence those who are influencing the next generation. This massive conference, and Sam, we're trying to, people are just arriving, and you are tasked with, hey, I want you to DJ this thing. I want you to get people to dance. I want you to get all this energy. And you've got these people that are just not wanting to play a whole lot. It's like the Frozen Chosen out there. And I'm watching Toni, and Toni is just standing out there. She's dancing. She's winking at you. She's doing it. She's pulling people in to get them to dance. And I thought, you know what? She's got his back. She's got his back, because those of us who are up front, we've all had those moments where like, come on now. Are you kidding me? You're a guy that speaks to arenas of people, and you couldn't get a courtyard of, 30 people to get on board. And I watched that support, and I thought, that's a great example.
Yeah.
That is a great example, because you've got a lot of people patting you on the back saying, great job, I'm sure. Doing what you do. You are great at what you do. We know that. There's a lot of people that love you. And
she got the people on the floor.
She got the people on the floor. She got that in that moment. Those are the moments that matter to a man. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had a moment yesterday where, even here at Orange Tour, where I'm going, you always have last minute stuff. Like, I got this. And I made the sign. I did this. I got this. Now I came outside. People can't get in the door. I'm getting them in the door. I'm right, I'm just like, man, and we just had a moment where I'm just like, I try to highlight those moments and celebrate those moments. And just like, hey, I really appreciate you for this. It means a lot.
While you were ironing, I remember that moment. It was great. I felt so appreciated.
He was ironing? Oh my gosh.
And he stopped ironing, and he turned around and goes, come here. I'm like, okay.
All right, don't make me.
Okay, sorry. I remember it was great. But I will say this, if I can say this, and not that I do anything at all. I have to preface it because of this. Like, our support is genuine. Like, we support each other because we love each other. But I will say, I've got Sam's back, but Lord, has he had mine. And that's true.
And that is a beautiful story of your us too. Like, that is what you guys are doing, what God's doing through you. Just the guy we interviewed earlier, he said his daughter's word for the year is light. That she wants to be a light. You guys are Christmas bulbs, let me tell you. And not the old ones. You're like the new, LED ones. You guys are so okay. And I want to say that one of the things that you guys told me just so excitedly is like, hey, we just got married. We're talking about that. That's great. And we're seeing a counselor. Now let me tell you this. Now let me tell you about my first experience with going to counseling, because I was up in, and I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of this, but I'm saying this for hopefully somebody that's listening to that would relate. I was up in front of a lot of people. Nancy and I were in front of a lot of people, and I was hurting. And my hurt was spilling onto my relationship with Nancy. She was taking some of that pain that was not hers to take. So I went to see a counselor, and I asked him, can I go into the back door of your practice? And he let me in the back door. And now we shout to the rooftops that we love counselors and we want to go to counselors. But I never want to forget that guy or that lady that goes, there's something wrong about this. Because when I'll say to guys sometimes, counseling, it's like you take a Sharpie and for a man, you've written loser on his head. It comes with all these connotations. But I think what we've all said is once you do it, you shout it from the rooftops. But there's that initial thing, and it doesn't make sense to me. What made you guys so comfortable with it? Because I love it. It's just, and I believe 100%. And again, we shout it all the time. What made you guys so brave and so enthusiastic to do that? Because I loved it.
Well, I mean, at first, I think we have to say Reggie. So let's start there.
Let's start there. Yeah.
He was like, hey, y'all need to do this. And we're like, okay, But I think some tangible reasons. I mean, one, she didn't mention a lot about the abuse that she kind of went through, which I get it. Because we try not to badmouth anybody, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Verbal specifically, a little bit of physical. So one, I think once you go through stuff like that, you just need, I felt like, which is why I said, okay, one, I didn't want anybody that went to North Point because I don't want anybody looking at me and analyzing me on stage. They're like, well, I saw you last week. You didn't say, so,
Right.
So I wanted to get somebody that could be an extra set of hands of love for us, for her, for me.
Beautiful way to say it.
Because I wanted more love. I'm like, well, because I knew, and marriage. I'm sure couples experience this. It's like, it's hard sometimes when you may be having a disagreement and there's no love coming from either side because if both parties are hurt at one time,
sure,
or depending on whatever is happening, and so I think it's great to have somebody that is unbiased, that's just pouring love onto y'all. Like, you know what, you did that was good when you did that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, he did this, and so that's 2. 3, which is a big thing. And I'm sure she does as well. I hate not being good at something. I just hate.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I hate not being good at something, and I have a goal. For me, I'm always like, and a lot of this came from the Catalyst North Point Orange world, and it really stuck with me that at the end of the day, what I'm going to be measured on is before my ministry is how did you take care of what I gave your family.
That's good.
And so for me, I'm like, well, why wouldn't I go to counseling? I want all the information. I want, our counselor said to us today, she said, you guys do what most couples never do. She said, and y'all do it every week. I'm like, because I want to know everything.
Because it's not always fun, right?
Right.
It's not always fun to go and crack open all that pain.
No, but I am a firm believer. I'm like, I just want to learn. Because it does, but you know what it does? It doesn't impact my identity.
There we go. Yeah.
And that's a big thing for me because I know, here's what I know. And I hope this doesn't sound arrogant or not. I think with God, if it was just me, God, and Toni, I think we'd be okay. You know what I'm saying? Sure. I think we would make it. I think it would be difficult for sure. Just in general, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But I think we would be fine and we would live a great story and all of that. But I think with some extra hands in there, I'm like, man, this doesn't have to be as hard as some people make it.
Praise the Lord
Being
on
on
that.
the offense, not the defense.
Doesn't have to be as hard as some people make it. Oh my gosh, this tagline of this podcast is making marriage real, fun, and simple. And it's just going, come on, people, it's not as hard as you think. Be kind. Like there's some of that just to be kind, but just to go, but to have, think of any other thing we're good at. We have a coach.
Yeah.
Right? Any other thing, we've got people. Yeah.
Doctors.
So isn't it crazy?
It doesn't have to be as hard.
It feels like that's the battle of the enemy. Like when I start thinking about
for
the battle to go, you know what? If I can keep you confused, because Satan's the author of confusion, if I can keep you confused that you don't know how to do marriage, if I can keep you ashamed that seeking helps for broken people or whatever that is, then I'll keep you from those tools and those truths. And all it is walking with the wise. You guys are just walking with the wise each week. So, for people that are scared of counselors or talking to a pastor or talking to a good friend whose marriage, don't be afraid. It matters Toni, what about you?
Man, I guess I'll try to speak into the people that aren't maybe as enthused as Sam had said, because I won't lie. At first, while I always wanted to go, and I'm like, I've got to do this, I probably wasn't as, I won't say excited, just, I don't even know what the word is, but just, I was a little nervous. Sure. There it is. I was definitely a little nervous. Yeah. I had been suppressing a lot of emotions and suppressing feelings for a very long time, because that's just how we did things in our household growing up. It's like, okay, why are you crying? Be quiet. And then in my marriage as well, my first marriage, it was just like, okay, let's not deal with that. And so now we've got this situation where it's like, okay, I've got to start pouring my emotions out. So I'm a little nervous about it. I would say for those of you that are just experiencing that friction of, number one, I don't have time for this. Well, we make time for the things that we really care about and deeply love and want to grow and be better at. Same thing with the gym, like putting that mindset on of, okay, I've got to do this because I want to be a better me physically. Well, we want to be a better us emotionally. So that, I would say, one thing to watch out for is fear. With counseling. So it's the fear that I've got to expose myself to someone that I don't know initially. And that's not in my family. They're not my friends. I didn't grow up with them. It's just this stranger. So fear of that. And then fear of being judged too. Like just of being, when you put so much out there, you're always wondering if people are going to judge you for it.
Right.
And I will say this, I mean, shout out to Brene Brown for teaching me this, but vulnerability and bravery and being courageous unlocks so many other healthy emotions, even in the midst of the fear of unveiling everything.
Wow.
So those are some things for me that helped to get to that point. It was just like, all right, I got to stare this bad boy in the face. And when I tell you, talk about shout it from the rooftops, okay? I am a much better me, much better wife, much better friend, and much better mother, because I know what's going on in me. I know where it came from. And now I can attack it with the help of people that really love me.
God, and then your mini-me, you're able to go, oh, sweetheart, I feel like you, or I get that. But oh my gosh, it's so powerful. It's not easy. It's not fun. I remember looking at my counselor one time, and I said, because he was digging up through like child abuse, and I looked at him and I go, I hate this and I hate you. Because it was, I felt like it was abusive almost, because it was so painful. And he looks at me and he goes, that's okay, I can handle it because I love you. And it wasn't cheesy, and it wasn't
I hate you.
I said, I hate this and I hate you.
Yeah, it gets that real.
You know how you get when you get into that really scary stuff, because you push and you push and you push.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to paint the picture. Because I thought, he goes, what did you think this was going to be? I said, I don't know, venting to a friend. This is not venting to a friend. Pat on the back.
Go ahead, have a good time.
Good job. Yeah, glad you could get that out. You know, somebody listen. It's not that, but I am so thankful for my kids and my wife. How you got me. But you guys, so brave. It's so brave. And people see, and I love that you're being brave, because I think people see you, and those of you that don't see them, they're both lookers. They're both beautiful people. They're both very young, beautiful people, always smiling, always full of energy, always encouraging everybody else.
Well, when I met her, I said, I got to step my game up. Let me go back to the dentist.
Right. Oh, my God.
Go back to the dentist with this big, bright, white smile. Yeah, shut up. But it is.
You look great, Sam.
That's what they see. And I think I've heard somebody say, don't compare what you know about someone else with what you know about yourself. Like, don't be too impressed with the people in states. Like, you don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
But I think once people do dig a little deeper into you, it's even more wow of what God's done and his hand. And you go, God, I don't know what stories you're painting with all of this and marriage and all this thing. And it's a messy canvas, no doubt about it. Yeah. But man, the picture he is painting with you guys and little Dylan and all the way you guys are healing, and the redemption and the healing. I'm just like, This is good stuff, you guys. Thank you so much for being so completely real. I know it wasn't easy. It's like counseling. Your brother going, I hate this and I hate you. Right? You used to like me, but
I was like, well, Ted, this is the last time. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, we're such a fan of you.
Oh, man.
kind.
Seriously.
In the car, I was like, we got to do it. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
again, I mean, we want whatever our lives to be, our marriage to hopefully encourage people to get married.
Yeah.
And inspire them in any way that it can.
Talk about that for a little bit, because there is definitely a movement of people saying, I don't want marriage. I grew up, it was painful. It was temporary. It was hurtful.
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit. Speak to a millennial who goes, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think it's a good thing.
There's a loneliness for a man that, I mean, the married men know that pales in comparison to what the knownness in a marriage brings.
The knownness in marriage. Ooh.
Wow.
Because it is just, I think for me, a long time, because she knows my past. I had the lust thing, heavy in my past. And I never really had an issue with like appealing to the opposite sex, or in terms of like love issues or problems. It's like, okay. I was always, I don't know. I was a picky person. I was all of these things. And then I just looked up one day and I was like, man, it's just lonely. Because you can date, and you can go here, and you can go here, you can go here. And at some point in your life, the more you grow in God, the more you don't want to be lonely. You're like, and it starts to become an Achilles heel. It's like, I'm in ministry, because especially if you're in ministry, you're running, you got to kind of be perfect all the time, right? You can't. You have all these, these girls hitting you on Instagram and Twitter and in your life, and you're like, can I trust you? Do I not know you? And you just have this stuff, and you can't do anything, and it's temptation everywhere, and you're like, man, and it just gets lonely because you have to isolate.
To be alone, right?
You have to isolate yourself. And so I would say, men, and the men out there know that lonely feeling that you have at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m, or what it's like to be tired of going from woman to woman, date after date, thrill after thrill, because it never grounds you. And so I would say that. But then too, I would say, I think you understand Christ's love for us greater. Let me not say greater, but in a new way.
Yeah.
When you get married, because I heard somebody say that, what book? I don't know what book I was reading, but it was incredible. And it was saying that marriage is supposed to be a real life interpretation of Christ's relationship with the church. This idea of unconditional love, that we're with each other, that I'm loving you through this, and we're both like, no matter how crazy it gets from a unconditional love perspective, and us going through changes. Obviously, we know it's different because Jesus is perfect, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in this context of relationship, both of us trying and coming at each other on both sides, going, I'm going to keep running after you, and we're going to keep, and I accept you, and I'm for you, and all of your brokenness, I'm with you, and I'm going to ride, and I'm there for you. It does something, I think, for us to understand how much more God loves us. Because we start feeling what it feels like when your spouse does something and you're with them, you're not leaving them, because they're trying and they're for you and they're with you, but there's just a moment of confusion and you're like, what do you mean by that? I mean, and it gets to this space and you're like, and it's drawing out all the ugly parts of you and you're like, this is me every day. And then you go, but she's still loving me in spite of.
Yeah.
And God, you want me to love her in spite. It's just like, well, God, you love us in spite of, oh my God. And then you just get to this place. So I think if you find the right one, it's way better than doing it alone.
Toni, you want to jump in?
I think from my vantage point, I think I can definitely speak into those that are fearful to get married, because I've been in an unhealthy marriage. But through our story and the redemption that God has brought to it, I still would say it's worth it. Because even through all of that pain and through, the hope being lost, God has still given me the power to love unconditionally. And you would think that, that it would be gone. This was taken from me. And for those of you that have been battling, not even in marriages, but in relationships, maybe you had a long-term relationship where you're going from relationship to relationship and it's just not working. I just want to say, I think God has given us enough power to love unconditionally, despite what we've gone through. And I just think that we have to, continue to put ourselves in a situation to fight for the love that God has given us, and just don't give up, and don't allow fear to take away your not ability to love, because we all have it, God has given us, but your fight to keep loving and to keep searching and to keep looking for what's for you. Because if God has a human for you, you do not want to miss out on the love that you're going to receive, but more powerfully, the love that you're able to give, because it changes you and it creates the actual being that God has created.
Wow. Yeah. Unless you feel like you're Paul and you've been called to singleness.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's a person for you.
Yeah.
I think that's far and few.
Yeah. I do too. I think most of us are wired to want to be with one other person for the rest of our life.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, when you think about, from a church perspective, because one of the things Married People does is we try to help churches help marriages. And, if marriage is supposed to represent the relationship between Christ and the church, I thought one day, wow, God is using marriage to be the number one marketing tool of the church. Wow. So I say to church leaders, what are the marriages of your church saying about your church, and what are they saying about Christ? Because they should be saying that something so great that people from the world look in and go, hey, I don't know about the whole God thing yet, maybe, but I'll have what they're having. I want what they have. That's what's to draw millennials, to draw people that are afraid of marriage into the church. And then we got to partner with each other to help each other do it well, because most of us doesn't come with these great stories, and we don't come with a lot of great examples. And so I think brothers and sisters in Christ, we got to be that for each other. And so you guys are modeling something great. You're modeling it for me. You're modeling it for so many young people that you're speaking into. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, we love you, Ted.
I love you. Oh, I'm just like
Married People.
Our producer's over shaking his head, going, "Oh, there's a love fest in here."
It's like so much.
But you guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ted.
Wow, I told you that was going to be an amazing, amazing story, and it really is. And I hope that Sam and Toni's story means as much to you as it did to me. I hope it was as encouraging to you as it was to me. So we want to thank them for joining us, and thank you for joining us for the Married People podcast. If you enjoyed today's unique episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And while you're on iTunes, you can check out Sam Collier's podcast, A Greater Story, where he interviews leaders and thinkers every single week. It's a great, great podcast. And finally, for more great resources to make your marriage better, check out Ted's book, Your Best Us. You can find it on Amazon or by visiting our website, MarriedPeople.org. And then join us for next week's episode. Until next time, I'm CJ, and for Afton and Ted, thank you for listening.